Hello, good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Oh, okay, just making sure I couldn't hear anything. I thought volume was out.
We were all muted. Look at us all here and ready.
Get ready, get started.
We're ready.
Morning, everybody. Welcome to our Mountain Line Board meeting scheduled for today, Wednesday, August 21st. I'd like to call our meeting to order. Before we get underway with our agenda, just to share with everybody present, please be advised that the Board of Directors may vote to hold an executive session for the purpose of obtaining legal advice from Mountain Line's attorney in any matter listed on the agenda pursuant to Arizona revised statutes. Next executive session may be held at any time during the meeting, and executive sessions are not open to the public pursuant to Arizona open meeting laws. Rhonda, can you get a roll call for our meeting today?
Thank you, Chairman and members of the board. City of Flagstaff, Lori Matthews is expected. Coconino County, Geronimo
Present.
Vasquez. Thank you. City of Flagstaff, Miranda Sweet here. Thank you. NAU Josh Mayer.
Here.
Thank you. And CCC Tony Williams.
Present.
Thank you. We do have our attorney Scott Holcomb on Zoom.
Good morning.
Good morning. And we have members of staff online and here in the Vera room. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Rhonda. The safety minute, Sam.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I normally read a different safety minute for the board meeting than I did the tag, but I thought I would keep them both the same this year. Relevance to it's important in this time of year. So today's safety minute is on back to school safety. Back to school means more kids are back on the streets. Parents and kids both need to remember how to stay safe during this busy time. Here are a few tips for back to school road safety. Parents, slow down and be alert in residential areas and near schools. Be especially watchful of kids in rural areas, especially without sidewalks. Children 10 and under should not cross the street unsupervised. Review the safety guidelines with them. Look left, right, and left again when crossing and keep looking as you cross. Walk and do not run across the street. Remind kids to cross streets at corners using traffic signals and crosswalks whenever possible. Children should never run into the street or between parked cars. For those children riding bicycles, teach your child the rules of the road and practice riding the bike route to the school with your child. Ride on the right side of the road with traffic and in single file. Come to a complete stop before crossing the street, look both ways, and then walk your bike across the street. Make sure your child always wears a properly fitted helmet and bright colored clothing or a reflective vest. Please help us keep kids safe this school year by using these back to school safety tips.
Thanks, Sam. All right, next on our agenda are milestone anniversaries, and Heather, the floor is yours.
Great. Well, can I just say welcome back from summer break? Glad to have you all here with us. I know some of you are enjoying break. I'm here today to celebrate 3 milestone anniversaries. And so on this screen, we do have 3 employees that are celebrating. All of them are celebrating their first year here at Mountain Line, all of them serving in operator roles. So I'll start on the left, Jackie Ramirez. Jackie comes into work daily for paratransit or fixed route and brings with her a big smile. When she arrives, Jackie fills the room with warmth and happiness that infects all around her. I'm happy to say that we hear the same from our passengers as well. Jackie is a great presence and we're grateful for her first year of service here at Mountain Line. Ryan Curley. Ryan is a silent hero as an operator. Ryan is in our part-time pool, meaning he has a full-time job somewhere else and he still comes here and helps us out on a regular basis. He comes to work, he checks in and finds and heads out to do his job. Ryan's willingness to help and assist with the Flagstaff community is unsurpassed. Ryan will and does go the extra mile for our passengers on a regular basis. Quite honestly, Ryan has been a key player in filling our shifts while we have dealt with driver shortages. We keep trying to lure him over from his other employer, but geez. Peter Corbel, last photo there on the right-hand side of the screen. Peter is an amazing find to add to the Mountain Line team. Peter's driving and safety practices are implemented daily at an extremely high level. Peter is always willing to lend a helping hand to help other operators with concerns or just give other operators tips on customer service. He's really great at customer service. He actually is cross-trained to also be an operations supervisor on an as-needed basis. And so happy to celebrate these 3 first-year anniversaries, and I hope to come back 5 years from now to celebrate their 5th.
Thank you, Heather.
Yeah.
So this is agenda item 5, call to the public. Rhonda, do we have any members of the public wishing to speak today or written statements?
No members of the public in the room. However, we did receive one public comment via email that I can read. It was received from Shamik Bahi on Saturday, July 27th, 2024. And it says, "Dear Meet the CEO and Board of Directors, I write to inspire you to make Mountain Line bus fare free. Mountain Line bus fare free. I encourage you to quickly transition to a fare-free bus system. I believe in your abilities to explore and secure creative ways to fund the loss of revenues. There is no better time than now as people are struggling against the rising costs of housing and inflation. The price of a fare-free Mountain Line bus is low compared to the benefits it can provide to our community, economy, environment, and traffic. Will you please join me in make Mountain Line bus fare-free?" Thank you, Shamik Bahi, area or zip code 86004.
Thank you, Rhonda. Appreciate that.
Thanks.
All right, approval of the minutes. I think we've got 3 minutes here to approve today. Easier for me to read from my laptop. One from April 17th, 2024, one from May 13th, and one from June 26th. Before I cater a motion to approve, Scott, if you don't mind, I do have a question if you're available.
I am.
So Scott, an interesting thing occurred at the June 26th meeting, and that is we had 2 board members present and 3 alternates that day. So the question I have is, how do we approve those minutes if those alternates are not present?
Actually, Heather, are the minutes circulated before the meeting?
Yes.
So the minutes are circulated before the meeting. I think you have, it is fine for you to approve the minutes unless you've received if somebody who's not going to be here hasn't received some response from someone that there is an error in the minutes. Because they've had an opportunity to review. You have the board members who were there, who have also the opportunity, had the opportunity to review the minutes and raise anything that they know of right now. But I think that process fully satisfies the legal requirements for approving the minutes.
Okay, if I may jump in and clarify, so the June 26th board meeting, we had 3 alternates, 1 board member in attendance. The single board member that was in attendance is not present today. We're expecting them, but they are not yet here. I'm understanding, advice from legal is that because the minutes were circulated to all board members, including the alternates that would have potentially been those in attendance at June 26th, we can go ahead whether the one board member who was in attendance is or isn't present, we can proceed with approval of the June minutes because everyone had an opportunity to review them and no concerns were brought forward.
That's correct. You also have staff, the preparation, and Heather, your staff has reviewed them versus it as well. So, Chair, you have all the authority I think you need to approve those minutes. If for any reason you're uncomfortable, those minutes could be brought back at a later time for approval too. But I think you are well within your authority to approve them now.
Great, thank you, Scott. With that said, I would welcome a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes for April 17th, the special meeting minutes for May 13th, and the regular meeting minutes for June 26th.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Great, thank you, Scott, for your help.
You're welcome. That's why I'm here. It's good to feel useful at times.
Really good not to have to go to an executive session for that too.
Yeah.
Let's see, moving along, discussion items, action items today, number 7, which is amended Rider Code of Conduct and Transportation Service Suspension Policy. Sam.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Staff are recommending that the Board of Directors approve resolution 2025-170 to adopt the amended Mountain Line Rider Code of Conduct. Mountain Line recently has changed their approach to customer service and how it relates to our Rider Code of Conduct. The main reason that we did change it was to provide a more customer-friendly environment on our transit services. Also to make sure that the policy aligned with other information that's been publicly adopted, like our Riders Guide and our rules for riders, which are in our Riders Guide. We also wanted to make the policy more clear to our staff as well as customers, and then also to provide additional resources for our staff. Some of those resources would be frequent and clear assistance from the supervisors in the field and better documentation for those suspensions. So some of the examples of the changes that we made is specifically this next change here. Prior to this, you could not bring an animal on board the bus unless it was a service animal or in a cage. We've changed the rule to read pets are welcome now, but may not occupy a seat and must be under control at all times. Animals displaying aggressive behaviors, threatening other passengers, or acting in a disruptive manner will be refused. So essentially, you can bring pets on board as long as they behave and they're under the control of their owner. Also, we added additional suspension lengths to the policy. Prior to the changes, the suspension lengths were either 1 day, 30 days, 60 days, or 90 days. Myself and the operations director, Steve Hamlin, thought that if we changed the suspension lengths and the dates, that it would better reflect the suspension infractions. So we could do 2 weeks or 6 weeks, even 1 week if we so chose to, but it's not so rigid now. Some more of the changes that we also made were some of the suspension procedures. Drivers will no longer be able to suspend somebody for the day without prior approval from the supervisor. And that suspension must be documented both by the driver and the supervisor. Also, the suspension appeal process, we modified that. We also, to the appeal process, we included the HR manager in the appeals process because the HR manager is also our ADA, EEO, and civil rights officer. That way we reduce the likelihood of someone's rights being violated under those laws or policies. So again, staff are recommending that the Board of Directors approve resolution 2025-170 to adopt the amended Mountain Line Rider Code of Conduct and Transportation Service Suspension Policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Do we have any questions from members of the board for Sam?
I guess I have a question about the pets. I'm assuming having pets on buses is a normal thing in other cities.
Usually, yeah.
Yeah.
Slowly gone that way.
Okay.
Within the last 10 to 15 years, I'd say more and more systems are allowing pets versus just strictly the service animal or a pet in a cage. So,
Vice Chair Vasquez, I see your hand is up. You have a question?
Yes, thank you. My question is, what led to the need for the amendment to include the supervisor to be included in the suspension?
we felt that a lot of the one-day suspensions were not getting documented, so we were not aware of certain suspensions that were happening. So if we made it across the board where they had to gain prior approval for any suspension, then we would know about every suspension when it happened. And we'd also have another opinion on the person's infraction, what they did, whether it warranted a one-day suspension or a suspension at all.
Now, would those, let's say there's a situation and the driver decides the suspension is needed, would that a suspension go into effect right then and there? What's that process to implement that suspension?
First, they would have to gain approval from the supervisor, whether that be over the radio or in person, preferably in person. And then once the supervisor gave the operator permission to suspend the person for the day, then it would occur right there. The person would be notified that their riding privileges were suspended for the day, and they would be asked to get off the bus.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
If I may add, Supervisor Vasquez, members of the board. So one of the things we're striving for with our drivers is to allow them to focus on delivering a customer experience and removing them from the policing of policies and enforcement of policies and supporting them with field staff that are instead taking on that role. And so this is something we're seeing on a national screen, but it is tied to assault on transit drivers. We're trying to reduce the opportunity for there to be an assault on a transit driver, whether it's a non-physical or physical assault. Again, trying to remove the operator from just one more thing that they're doing while they're operating their vehicle, and allowing other team members to step in and make those focal points of, did the behavior really require a suspension, or can we coach and talk you through why we do things the way we do them, increasing the access, the reliability of their access to transit, especially for those who really need it, right? But also improve that customer experience. So it's part of an overall focal point, Supervisor Vasquez.
Right, and national statistics show that over 90% of assaults on drivers do occur because of fare disputes. So it's one way to add another person to the conversation.
No, thank you. I appreciate the clarification. Just wanted to put that through because it did seem, just wanted to make it more clear and get it on the record. So thank you.
Thank you.
Scott, looks like you have your hand up. You have a question?
No, if I may, Chair, just a comment. I've represented Mountain Line in relation to issues over suspensions too. And I do want the board to be very comfortable that the Mountain Line staff, my experience really goes above and beyond in really trying to make sure that suspensions are handled fairly. It's not, I think the over suspension is not a problem, and they go out of their way, I think, to treat riders very well. The second thing is by having that supervisor approve the suspension, it insulates the driver some if it does escalate beyond that, and it makes it much easier for us to defend the suspension if there is something that comes down the road. Because we have had to deal with those issues because we do have some problem patrons. But I want you to be very comfortable that the Mountain Line goes out of its way to treat the riders very well.
Great, thank you, Scott. Appreciate that. I think it would be interesting to see data later on, post change, if approved today, how this would impact behaviors moving forward, to see that if that's a trend that's being used across the country, when we start to see a reduction in that kind of violent behavior, that this appears would mitigate. So
I have noticed our suspensions have went down greatly within the last 2 months. That's a small sample size, so we can definitely bring those results back at a later time.
great, thank you, Sam. Any other questions from members of the board? Hearing none, I would cater a motion to approve resolution 2025-170 to adopt the amended Mountain Line Code of Conduct and Transportation Service Suspension Policy, and authorize the CEO and general manager to approve future updates that do not alter the intent of the policy as presented today.
A move to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Director Sweet, be you this time, Vice Chair Vasquez.
Not a problem.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Moving right along, item number 8 on our agenda is the review advertising program and revenue update, and Jackie Lenners is going to present.
Thank you, Chair and members of the board. So I'm going to be the first of 3 presentations you're going to hear today related to our transit advertising program. I'm going to sort of lay the groundwork, and then I believe Josh and Heather will take it from there and talk about some of the money side of things. So I'm going to talk about how we bring the money in. So Mountain Line, and I do really just have pictures here, so I'm going to kind of move through the slowly to give you an idea. So Mountain Line sells advertising on the sides, back, and interior of our buses. We've run this advertising program for many years. I've been here for 12 and a half years. And although it has changed over that time, we have operated it in some way or another for that entire time. And it was in place before I got here. So we handle everything ourselves, from selling the advertising to placing the advertising to doing the billing, all of those things. You'll find it different in larger transit systems. So if you're in a bigger city, it is typically an outsourced activity. So you have, you do an RFP and work with a company that sells the ads on your behalf, places the ads, handles all of the contact with the clients, and then they obviously take a cut of that, those proceeds, and the transit agency gets part of it as well. Mountain Line, the size of our fleet, we have 29 buses, 27 hybrid electric, 2 electric. The size of our fleet plus the location of our community, we are not really able to attract a third-party vendor to handle our advertising sales. It's just not lucrative for one of the established companies to do it. And it's really has not been so labor intensive on our staff's time that it would warrant pursuing that further at this time. Of course, things will always continue to evaluate it. So we, like I mentioned, we handle everything ourselves. And we generally run about 90 to 95% full with our ads. Obviously during COVID, things changed a little bit as advertising budgets changed, but we really do run fairly full. You know, Flagstaff does have a off-premise signage prohibition. So basically, I mean, we call it the anti-billboard ordinance. So Mountain Line is really, our advertising is one of the only outdoor advertising opportunities in Flagstaff. You know, there's the downtown, there's the street lamps, but other than that, and we don't have any billboards in town. And this is really, we're really kind of the only game in town. So that probably explains some of our success in selling the spots. So we do have like I mentioned, we have the exterior advertising, and then
there's a sliding scale of costing. So if you just want to sign a 1-month contract for one bus, that's gonna be the most expensive thing you could possibly do. If you want to sign a 12-month contract, that cost per month goes down. It's obviously less labor intensive for us from a, placing the ads, billing, things along those lines. We do also offer, interior advertising as well. It's up in the header space, and we do offer a 50% discount on that to nonprofit and local partner organizations. So like NAU, city, county, things along those lines. We do offer, as I mentioned, there's these street side king ads. So those are the largest ads that we offer. And then we have the tail ads, which are on the back of every bus. And then we also, and I'll get to the picture in a minute because I don't have many pictures, so I have to move through them slowly. We also offer the curbside ads as well. And so our board of directors sets our advertising policy, which outlines the types of advertising that are permitted on the bus and not permitted on the bus. And so we worked with Scott and his team over the years to really hone in on what we want and what we don't want. And having that policy really protects us from lawsuits and things like that. In a season like this, it's important to know that we do not allow political advertising. So you will not see a candidate ad on our bus. You will not see an ad for Proposition 488, the Mountain Line tax. You will not even see an educational one. You will not see a go vote message from us. We very much walk a line of not wanting to cross that line, I guess is the right thing to say. And then in addition to the policy, another thing, so the board, every once in a while we'll bring new items to the board. And one of the items that we brought most recently, which was several years ago at this point, was the addition of e-cigarettes and things along those lines. We had a, kind of a tobacco policy, but felt the need to really make sure that we weren't allowing advertising for e-cigarettes into the mix. We also don't allow any alcohol advertising, which is pretty common for many transit agencies. We don't feel like that would be a great message on our rolling across town on our buses. So the board also evaluates the space on our buses and what ads we do sell, what spaces we sell. So there's endless opportunities. Well, not endless because our buses are a little bit configured in a way that we can't do a lot of things, but if you go into a bigger city, you'll see entire buses wrapped for a client, or that kind of goes all the way down the side. Our board several years ago made the decision that they actually voted to, we only used to offer these tail ads. That was all you saw for many years. And probably, I'm gonna say 8 to 10 years ago, the board voted to offer the sides as well, but declined to do anything that would really take away from the look of our blue buses. They felt that the branding of Mountain Line was important. The advertising sales is important from a revenue standpoint, but the branding of Mountain Line is equally as important. So this is what we've been doing for many years. And you can see, like, I love this example. I mean, this is Brandy's restaurant. For a company like Brandy's to do a bus ad, like, that's a pretty big investment for them. That's not like, Nissan coming and doing an ad buy. So we love being able to have space for our local businesses and offer something that's affordable for them. But although, we think it's affordable, but for us local small business, I'm sure that's a significant investment. And here is one of those curbside ads, a really uplifting one. That is the kind of the gist of our advertising program. And in your staff report, you see, that we have actually significantly increased the revenue that we've brought in over the years. From fiscal year 22 to 24, we went from about $109,000 to about $178,000 and advertising revenue. And a lot of that is just because of people signing shorter contracts and also just making, that getting out of that COVID slump and having all of our space full. Our current, it's funny, over the years that, when I first started, we had like 3 advertisers and they re-signed their contracts every year. And it was the easiest thing in the entire world. It was like, NAU, CCC, and the hospital. And it was, or North Country, I think. And literally I just, here's your new contract for the year, sign it, great. And they might change out some signs, and that was really it. And it's not that way anymore. Hey, we have more buses, But B, you know, there are many more ways to advertise and people have diversified their advertising budgets. But I guess what goes around comes around because currently the hospital is our largest advertiser. So they do have a lot of space on our buses. So anyways, that is just some background on our advertising program and how we administer it and bring the funds in. And then before I turn it over to Heather or Josh, I'm not sure who's next to talk about what we can do with those funds, I wanted to see if there's any questions.
Board members.
Not yet.
All right. Thank you.
So this was an FYI kind of information only.
Correct. This part does not have a vote. I believe that one of the two next parts will have a voting component to it.
Great, thank you, Jackie.
Mhm.
Hey, staying in line with advertising, item number 9 is the reallocation of advertising revenues. Heather.
So the next staff report that you have in your packet, keeping with the theme of advertising. So Jackie shared with you all the ways we use advertising and get revenue. I'm here to ask for a reallocation of advertising revenue from our general fund to our operating programs. It's worth explaining. I hope I did it well in the staff report. We actually have a policy, and Josh is gonna talk about that next, where all advertising revenue is put into basically NAPDA's general fund. It is isolated from the programs that we operate on a regular and reoccurring basis. Years ago, when that policy was introduced, I think our advertising revenues were somewhere in the $25,000 to $30,000 range. And you can see in the report, we're much higher than that today. It is an opportunity to think about that decision to put that money in the general fund. And Josh is gonna talk about that. I'm more focused on an opportunity that exists because we do have around $900,000 sitting in that general fund today. To use some of those funds to offset the wage increase that was just approved last month that was off budget, but also to invest further in our recruitment, development, and retention efforts. So I have pulled out of the staff report just some facts from facts that lead me to make this recommendation. So as I said, we have about $900,000 in the general fund at this point in time. And I want to clarify, the general fund was a set aside reserved for matching grants that came up that weren't otherwise budgeted, to loan to other systems, maybe when local cash flow was a problem. This goes back to the days of Sedona and Cottonwood being part of NAPDA's umbrella. So there was this thought process that by setting this money aside, we were ready for opportunities. We were ready to assist members. Fast forward almost 15 years, different set of conditions, a different environment, different partnerships. And so like I said, Josh is going to talk about the financial policy. I'm having a hard time separating the two things, obviously. But you can see here the change in growth of advertising revenue over the last 3 years, with us reaching 178,000 in the last fiscal year. Congratulations, Jackie. I mean, that's a huge place for us to reach with that advertising revenue. Remember, in 2001, when I started, it was $20,000, if it was that, and they were just tail ads. So we worked really hard to grow that program and have it adopted in our community. This is one of those other revenue source streams that we can use to pay for our transit programs. Again, it's being put in this general fund. So I believe we have an opportunity. The money's been building year over year over year. You can see how quickly we could potentially rebuild if we move this 500,000 back to where it is today. I mean, we're really talking 2.5 to 3 years to replace the 500,000 that I'm recommending the board authorize us basically on paper to move out of our general fund into our operating revenue. That means it won't sit in our bank account in the future. It will actually be spent this year as part of revenues for our expenditures. The main trigger is the fiscal year 2025 wage change that was done off budget, but we also have opportunities with staff development to continue the progress we're making in getting people skilled and resourced for jobs as they change and as they grow, but also bring in training tools and resources for our other staff member. We're going to talk a little bit more about some opportunities we've had recently with staff. So that is the basis of my recommendation. I hope I've given you enough information to consider it. And I don't have really anything else to present, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions from members of the board? Hearing none. This is an action item, right, Heather?
This one is an action
All
item.
right, so I would cater a motion, to authorize the CEO and general manager to reallocate $500,000 in advertising revenue from the Mountain Line General Fund to the Mountain Line Operating Funding to offset the financial impact of off-budget expenses necessary for workforce recruitment, development, and retention as presented.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, of the motion, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Heather. And then, continuing on in this conversation, the financial policy update, Josh will lead us in that.
All right, so this is sort of more an administrative item, building on the previous topics from Jackie and Heather. So we wanted to consider a somewhat minor update to our financial management policy related to the general fund. So the policy of general fund, or the primary source of revenue, as Heather had said, being deposited into the general fund, has been advertising revenue. And to maintain that as a flexible reserve. So with no like regularly budgeted expenses from that reserve. So I think Heather kind of explained that it was kind of, when the policy was originally written, there was no vision that the balance would perhaps grow to the lofty heights that it is today. So we really would like the opportunity to put those funds to use for operation of our transit programs. I think we can move to the next. Putting those to use for the operation of our transit programs. So we have proposed a minor addition to the financial management policy to allow for distribution of the funds in excess of $750,000 to be used on an annual basis to be used directly for operations. We would continue to maintain that smaller reserve, but any amount we're able to transfer each year would certainly help offset to a small extent, of course, and it would be variable from year to year, but to help offset some of the need for the draw of local transit tax revenue and passenger fares to pay for operations of services. So here on the screen, we have a snippet of proposed change in your packets. I think we have the section of the policy with the proposed addition highlighted. Without this change, we could, of course, leave the policy as it is, and the balance of the fund would just continue to grow for undetermined needs in the future. With the change, we would leave that smaller reserve. So that we could entertain any questions or maybe work towards moving that policy.
Josh, I have a question.
Sure.
And forgive me, Heather, if I missed it in what you were covering, but so in the past, how have these funds been put to use? So that, because it seems to me like we're making a decision here today to make sure that we're allocating a pretty sizable chunk of money to be used in other ways. I'm just curious in the past, how have we spent those funds down? And then is it still spent in kind of the similar way, and this is just formalizing that approach, or is this really, solidifying a more designated reason for how these funds would be spent?
Sure, I think in the past they've been used for more one-time
So
opportunities.
pre-2006, when NAPDA was formed, we didn't set aside funds. They went right into the transit programs every year. And that's really because there's a nuance, and I don't know if it was in my staff report or Josh's, that we're using a federally funded vehicle to gain funding. And so the feds say, wait a minute, if you're using an asset that we funded, assisted you with funding, you have to use whatever revenues you receive as a result of use of that space back into the transit program. So it's not like I could take the advertising revenue and give it to the city to pay for science in the park, whatever it was, right? You have to put it back into transit. So in the earliest years that Mountain Line was a system and we had advertising revenue, every year it just went into cost. And so if we got 25,000, it saved the tax 25,000. It was just that automatic. When we became NAPDA, there was a decision that we had potentially this need from partners, and we had the recession hit almost immediately after forming NAPDA, right? Where, local funding doesn't always perform as anticipated. So maybe we should be setting up a rainy day fund, if you will. We've never transferred money out of this fund, ever. It's never been used for anything. It's been sitting there collecting over the years, which is not a bad thing. But I think if we look at 20 years of it, almost 20 years of it sitting there, not being put to transit uses, I think it's an appropriate time to think about how do we make sure that some of it's being reinvested immediately.
Great, thank you, appreciate that. Any other questions from board members? Sweet, did you?
No, I was just saying that's all the questions.
Hearing not much chatter out there. I would, welcome a motion from the board, to amend the financial management policy to include reallocation of excess advertising revenues for the purpose of transit program operations when the general fund balance exceeds $750,000. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the motion, please signal by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Right. And moving on to number 11 on our agenda today, the mobility as a service plan update. Stella.
Thank you, Chair, members of the board. Estella Hollander, I'm the planning manager at Mountain Line, and I'm going to provide an update regarding our mobility as a service plan. There is no action item today. So this plan was kicked off a year ago, August of last year. And the goal of this plan is to create new and improved mobility options for our paratransit and microtransit riders through new technology and contracted relationships that maximize transit options in a cost-efficient and effective manner. Essentially, how do we improve mobility for our paratransit, microtransit riders? Can we enhance mobility through like same-day service? And what is the best way to do this? So is that through contracted relationships? So maybe contracting our operations out, or and then just really looking at that to what is the most cost-effective way to improve these programs. We did work with a consultant, so Texas A&M Transportation Institute, or TTI, to complete this plan. So progress to date, the first step was information gathering, analysis of our current conditions. So looked really deep dive into our paratransit and microtransit programs, from our ridership to our cost per hour, cost per trip, but also our policies and things like that. So really just, yeah, again, did a deep dive in those programs, identified potential operation models. So this could look at kind of on one end of the spectrum, we contract all of our paratransit services out. So we do almost like a turnkey contract with an operations provider. Currently, our program is in-house, so the operators and the vehicles and everything are Mountain Line. To then another side of the spectrum is, do we just kind of do a bit of a hybrid model? So could we just maybe broker or contract some trips out to like other providers such as like Uber or Lyft for microtransit or paratransit? We evaluated, compared these different models, and then this plan also provided a model recommendation. Right now, we have not implemented any changes, so this effort was really just looking and researching these different options. So the first recommendation, kind of phase one, or sort of like a short-term, smaller change, is to continue operating paratransit, microtransit in-house. So again, the operators, the vehicles, everything are Mountain Line staff, and it's our vehicles. But incorporate an ADA certified overflow provider. So there's a couple of companies out there, such as Userve and Silverride, that are on the screen. So these providers are similar to Uber and Lyft, meaning like they use their own vehicles, they're contract, like they're drivers that are on a platform just like Uber and Lyft, like a tech platform. But they are they go through extensive training. So they're drug and alcohol certified. They also, they have passenger sensitivity training. So they're just, I guess one step above Uber and Lyft drivers, where they are FTA certified drivers. And then as well as add paratransit to existing microtransit trip booking apps. So currently we have Mountain Line Go, which is our microtransit service. So people can book, cancel rides, see where the vehicle is. We want to open that up to our paratransit riders. That way they can manage their trips through that way. So hopefully that also reduce our call volume as well. So phase two, are kind of a larger plan of changing our paratransit service and microtransit, is moving towards a same day paratransit model. So currently our paratransit service, you have to book the day in advance by 5 p.m. So it does limit kind of that spontaneity and flexibility of our paratransit riders. So I'll walk us through this tree. So first is the customer at the top, where they would request a trip. It goes to our call center, or also could be an app. And then there's sort of three different options. So the first one is our Mountain Line vehicle. That's how our current service is. So these are ADA certified drivers. WAVE stands for wheelchair accessible vehicle. So these vehicles have lifts or ramps. And then there's shared rides. So could be multiple people on the ride, picking up people kind of throughout the trip. The middle option is this ADA overflow option. So again, kind of similar to Uber and Lyft, but they go through more training. They're typically non-wheelchair accessible vehicles, and then it would be shared ride. And then the third option is this opt-in provider. So this would be like an Uber, Lyft, or could be our local taxi companies. These these operators are not ADA certified, and they are typically not wheelchair accessible vehicles, and they're not a shared ride. It's called opt-in because our paratransit riders would choose or opt in to join this program. So if they didn't want to, they wanted an ADA certified driver, they definitely don't need to go in that opt-in program and could just stick with the Mountain Line and that ADA overflow option. The reason behind this is because often contracting with Uber and Lyft or this ADA overflow provider, they're cheaper. They're more on a cost per trip basis. Versus in our case, we have an operator out there for, let's say, 8 hours a day. So even if there's no trips, you're paying for that operator. So there's just ways to have that cost efficiency by paying on a cost per trip basis compared to that cost per hour basis. The next steps, working on just kind of some small policy fixes, some minor compliance things. So for example, like changing our right now, for our trip, we have advanced trip reservation for 14 days, changing that to 7 days, mostly because we have a lot of no-shows for our paratransit program. So, people might book a trip 14 days in advance, forget about it. So just kind of tightening up that window a bit more. So that'll hopefully reduce our no-shows. And then for phase one, that's kind of somewhat keeping as business as usual, but Also developing a scope of work for that ADA overflow provider and then contract with that overflow provider to be able to broker some of our trips over to this additional provider. And then phase 2, so kind of this larger change, to move to a same-day paratransit program, create that opt-in program with like Uber and Lyft and a taxi company. A lot of this, we won't make any major changes without having a permanent operations director. That is still a vacant position. So waiting on that to make any kind of major changes in these programs. And I believe that is it. So yeah, I'm available for questions. And again, there's no action at this time.
And so I have a question. Can you go back to the flow chart you had it there? So the customer calls the call center, sets up one of those 3 options. The opt-in, I'm just trying to read the flow here, right?
Mhm.
The opt-in is basically then pushed over to the taxi program provider. So Lyft, Uber, taxis. Would that also include the, was it the YouServe, and those other groups? But those other options are, if I heard right, were ABA certified and Wave typically. So how do they fit into the opt-in option? Like, is that different? Or I was curious how that worked.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So the YouServe and Silver Ride, these are 2 common companies. That's that middle one, so the ADA overflow. So yeah, these operators, they're trained, they go through extensive training. The wheelchair accessible vehicle, they're typically not, because they are people's personal vehicles, just like Uber and Lyft. So really the biggest change is that there's just a bit more, I guess, control or like, a bit more like, I guess, training. And again, they're FTA certified for these ADA overflow or this YouServe and Silver Ride. That last one is really, so Lyft, Uber, and one of our taxi providers could participate. A trip would just go, to them, to like Uber and Lyft, it can be brokered to there if someone was part of that opt-in program.
Okay.
Does that help
So
clarify?
So the flow is that arrow from the opt-in provider box to the next boxes to the right. Those boxes on the right are really aligned more just with the opt-in box.
Correct, yeah. So the ADA overflow is just like this YouServe and Silver Ride. The opt-in is just like Uber, Lyft, and taxi provider.
Thank you. I want to make sure I understood that right.
Yeah.
So it took my brain a long time to figure out why are we jumping through these hoops to do this? If it's not really that different than what we do, because we already have the taxi voucher program, right? How is this different from that? From my perspective, one of the things that helped me understand it is when that call, take the opt-in out and just think of it as when that call comes in today, we will be able to dispatch to our own vehicle or to our providers under the regulations because they're certified, they're drug tested. So it gives us the benefit of the cheaper taxi option, if you will, but it ensures they get the same promise under the ADA laws, right? As we provide with our vehicle. We believe that the Mountain Line vehicle doing all the wave trips, because that's what we have, right? Continues to ensure we have those wave trips, but it allows us to look at this more as same-day service. It allows us to say to Mary Sue, you don't have to call the day before. You can call us an hour before you need to go to that emergency doctor's appointment, and we're going to find a way to serve you the same way that you, Miranda, can walk out of your house, walk down to the bus stop and get on the bus today. That is one challenge of the way paratransit is set up, right? The ADA overflow allows us the opportunity of finding more cost-effective ways to deliver some of the same trips by using someone else's vehicles, putting the liability on another company, et cetera, instead of our own vehicles. And it allows us to maximize how people can access those services. The opt-in is going to be key to really getting at that full same-day service model. But it doesn't have the same promise of ADA and the protections under ADA that the other two will have.
I like the direction that this is going. It makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah. Thanks, Estella.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're to our progress report section, and I believe a summary of current events is going to be delivered by Heather.
Indeed. We have made it almost to the end. Let me get my notes up. I put them in the slides and then I can't see the slides in here, so. Okay, so you had a summary of current events report in your packet. I'm just gonna highlight a couple of things. We attended a lot of back to school events. If you didn't read the report, we had 11 team members participating in 9 back to school events with a total of 132 hours at over these 9 events and 11 staff members, talking to students, faculty, and parents about how to use the Mountain Line public transit system. I think the most significant thing that I will share with you is that we issued roughly 900 passes through these events. We did these in coordination with FUSD, but the totals I'm sharing with you include some of the charter school events as well. We will have numbers soon for you, but I will tell you they look very positive. This is just the various people and events that we were at. Teaching people how to use the app is a key component to adoption of use of the bus pass. And I will tell you, I shared yesterday with staff, the school district had a staff member available to talk about the school's transit system because some students still have access to that. And she kept saying, oh, just go get a bus pass. Oh, just go get a bus pass. And it was really fabulous to be supported in that way. A lot of enthusiastic parents about this function. Maybe not with the 6th graders, but definitely with some of the older students. Estella shared this with me. We have an improvement going in on Lake Mary Road. Oh, sorry for the typo. It was very late when I did the slide. Through a partnership with the developer of affordable housing units on Lake Mary Road at Mohawk, all of our riders will soon see a much improved passenger bus stop. This photo here is just to give you a visual of what that improvement is going to look like. We've upgraded from a logo stop, that's the sign with 2 seats on it, to a full shelter at this location. And once this is complete, the stop will be a beautiful upgrade to our system, to the community, and it will have access to the Foots trail system as well. We have power. This, actually, if you look outside, it's a much better picture. I should have updated it, but this is our overhead pantograph charger. It's currently in these photos in a folded position. It is now standing fully upright. This is the charging system that the electric buses will use. It will drive under the system. The piece that's hanging down is the arm and it goes up. The buses will drive under that. There is contact pads that drop out of the top of the system, making contact with the top of the bus to complete that charge. So Lovin is installing or has installed the pantographs here at our facility. Ironically enough, it's on our fuel station. So we're still fueling our buses. The next steps are to complete the wiring and the commissioning is all being done this week. And our operations team is now looking at how to pilot use of the fast chargers for vehicles that are actually in service. So we look forward to being able to bring you some data on how this fast charger is going to aid us in continuing the adoption of zero emission battery electric vehicles. And more importantly, the data obtained through this pilot program is going to help us make decisions about on-route charging throughout the community or at the downtown connection center. And these are expensive, so we really need the data to make those decisions. We are excited to introduce another expansion to our recognition and reward system. This came from Steve Hamlin, our interim operations director. We recognize that providing public transit service comes with a lot of rules, regulations, and expectations, as we talked about a little bit earlier. It does not matter what job or title our staff holds. We all have to work together in order to develop great customer service and take care of our community. Therefore, we have implemented an organizational-wide reward program for all employees to be recognized and rewarded for the moments they step up, take on more, or exceed expectations. Being an organization that is looking for people doing things right, we are expanding our program to add these leadership coins. This is the front and back of that coin. They're a heavy coin. I should have brought some in the room. They're not gonna be awarded for things like showing up and doing your job, having your name tag up. They're gonna be awarded for going above and beyond. And then the coins can be redeemed by staff for a variety of perks, including purchasing additional time, buying back attendance points, et cetera. So a really great addition to round out some of our reward programs. But again, this is really focused on going above and beyond and building, hopefully, that pride that people take in their jobs by recognizing those that do. I talked a few minutes ago about ongoing training and development. This is a photo of 8 of our operators. Rich Philippe is, he has his sunglasses on in one photo. Rich is our most senior operator. I think he's at 18 years right now, just to give you an idea. And then, sitting at the head of the table is Phil, and Phil just completed his 1 year, I think, over the summer. So a variety of staff from varying degrees of seniority. They all took place in a webinar for, let me get the title. Customer-driven service. So this is again, that focus of not policing for policy, but creating a positive customer experience, and how do operators have a role in that? So these 8 attended that. They will then take this training and share it out with their peers at meetings in the future. This was a new opportunity that we identified through the Community Transportation Association of America, which allowed these staff to attend online with other transit professionals across the United States. We've also had, in addition to these 8 drivers that went through this training, 2 of our operations supervisors, Nick Johnson and Clarice Claremont, also celebrating just over a year of service here at Mountain Line, just completed the Certified Community Transit Supervisor training from CTAA. David Doss, our operations manager, completed Survive and Thrive, a successful business development planning for our transit system. And then we had Bernice Tooley, who is our paratransit superintendent, Clarice Claremont, Rachel Scala, another operations supervisor, and Serena Boynton, who's up front. They all went through professional dispatching and scheduling. All of these staff were able to take advantage of these opportunities during the late July to early August. But this is going to be an ongoing and continual focus of skill setting and giving people the resources both to do their current position, but also grow and develop here at Mountain Line for their career. Something we had lost over the whole COVID shenanigans. If you haven't noticed these stops around town, we have a few of them. I keep calling this a lid. The roof is missing. Lid's probably appropriate too. And that's because on these shelters that are stone wrapped, we can't remove the whole shelter. We only can remove the lid for the roof for rehabilitation. I remember the first one I saw, I thought it was really strange, and then I realized what we were doing. But what we're doing now is we're actually in painting. So you can see here, they're painting the poles, they wrap the rock, paint the poles. I appreciated this shade structure they created for the staff working in this space. But my understanding is some of the roofs are on their way back now. So they needed to complete this paint work in order to bring the roofs back to these shelters. We also have had a few shelters be reused. This is our CDL testing and training course. Our original thought was that we needed to train people on how to curb a bus, pull up to a curb like they would for passengers. Well, someone said, hey, why don't we put one of our shelters out there? So the drivers on the CDL course actually get the experience of seeing a shelter at that training course and having the benefit of really seeing the customer experience related to those shelters. And I appreciate the idea of doing that. We are in the middle of rehabbing shelters all across the community. So you may see a shelter here today and gone tomorrow. Hopefully we'll see roofs back soon. And I appreciate our facility team who's really facilitating this work, and our contractor, Southwest Fabrication, really comes up and does this work with cranes, and it's an amazing effort. Just because I really like to show you the DCC. Here's some photos of more recent progress. The top left is the staining of the timber that was put in. You can see they're framing out windows, putting up the exterior coverings. Slowly we'll see some of that gray brick disappear, and the beautiful stonework will start going in soon. I'm gonna plug it now. Come see it. September board meeting is going to be at the DCC. We're inviting you all to come tour that facility with us. We will be spending some time in the actual building structure, talking about some of the efforts and the different sustainability measures implemented there. And then we will also be taking a look at phase 2 on the ground, looking at that transfer center. What will that look like as we go forward? We'll be breaking people up into 2 groups. Rhonda did send out an invitation. If you can RSVP, we will then reach out as we get closer with additional instructions on where to meet, and what shoes to wear, because that is going to be important. This is a construction zone. More recent than those photos, we did buy out the city parking lot that is closest to our facility. So all the public parking that was there where we currently operate our transfer center now has been purchased by Mountain Line for the duration of our project. Some of that will be put back in post Rio. That's the city's project at this point, but we reimburse the city essentially for every spot that we would be disrupting. We went ahead and paid for them now, even though they're not disrupted, because our contractor has no place to park the folks doing the work inside the DCC. This gives us a little more flexibility. One strategy behind the decision was to do it now while the college students weren't here, so that as they move back into the community, we've already established that this is no public parking. I will acknowledge there were four or five ADA accessible spots on the far east end, southeast end of this lot that are maintained as ADA accessible stops, and those are still public parking locations. Lovin helped us with these barriers and creative signs, which we appreciated. And I know I got a report this morning that we are still seeing some people park in there, but for the most part, we are not seeing that posting be violated, which is what our hope was. And last, I have a few July anniversaries to share because we didn't have a meeting in July. Mark Attenberger, 16 years in our fleet division. Andy Brown, transit operator with 12 years. Jerry Holsworth, transit operator with 6 years. John Mathis, who's here in the room today, celebrating 18 years in our IT division. We stole him from Coconino County. Just gonna admit it. Maria Cardenas is serving as our paratransit operator right now. She's really dedicated to that position, although she's a transit operator and hopefully someday will continue with her training in our CDL program, but we're celebrating her 2nd anniversary, and Jose Peralta, his 2nd anniversary as a transit operator. We were just talking to someone earlier today about the longevity of employees, and I love sharing these reports because you can really see how long people stay. We have this little period of time where there's like a gap, but hopefully all of these 2 years, the 1 years we talked about earlier, again, we'll be back here in years to come celebrating those. And then these are our August anniversaries. Russell Beck on the top left, 7 years with Mountain Line. He actually just returned to a role as CDL operator, and we're grateful. He's really great at the customer service aspects, so really a great fit there. Marco Garcia is serving as operations supervisor, completing his 2nd year. Greg Lyons is now a mechanic 3 here with us. We tier our mechanics 1, 2, and 3, 3 being the most senior. 13 years with us here at Mountain Line. Jeremiah McVicker, our maintenance manager, you usually see him at these meetings, 7 years. Andrea Petrucci, 2 years, document control specialist. That means she's stuck in an office looking at papers all day long. I don't know how she does it, but we're so grateful. Wallace Stain, transit operator with 3 years. You can regularly see him in the parking lot roping his cow on his brakes. He brings in with him a fake cow. I don't know what that's called. I know there's a term for it, but he's regularly out there roping. It's kind of fun. And Donovan Walker, 4 years as a transit operator. I just want to recognize Donovan actually started out as a bus detailer for us in the height of COVID, and has advanced and progressed through our training program. So lots of employees celebrating lots of anniversaries, and I'm thankful that you gave me a moment to share those with you. And that concludes my current events, but I'd be happy to answer any questions or go over anything I didn't cover that you would like to hear more about.
Are we gonna mention anything about Jackie?
Oh, I should mention something about Jackie. I'm sure it's in a note somewhere. So Jackie Lenners, our deputy general manager, so grateful that you reminded me of this. We learned yesterday was selected out of a very competitive and large national pool of individuals to participate in the American Public Transit Association's leadership program. That program is designed to build our future leaders within the transit industry. If you were here years ago, Erica Maslow went through this program as well. The difference is we told Jackie she's not allowed to take this opportunity and job hunt with it. And I know Jackie's very dedicated to what we do here in this community, so I'm very supportive, very appreciative of her interest, and I think it's awesome. And I don't think a lot of small agencies get chosen for this program, and so really kudos to Jackie's application and the talent that she offered so that she was selected. So congratulations,
Yeah,
Jackie.
congratulations.
I do think that's the end of my comments.
Any additional questions from the board to Heather with her updates? Fantastic. Well, this gets us to our executive session part of our meeting today. And I would ask for a motion for the board to go into executive session to address two items. Scott, do I need to reference those items that are on the agenda?
I'm sorry, Chair, say that again, please.
As we go into cater a motion to go into executive session, do we need to reference specifically what those items are for the record, or is the minutes or the agenda good enough?
It's agendized. You can reference if you want, but it's on the agenda. Go into executive session for the purposes set forth on the agenda.
All right, so I will welcome a motion to go into executive session to address two items on our agenda.
I move we go into executive session.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, we will enter into executive session. Rhonda, will we need to do something different for the Zoom land?
I think it can stay on there for now. There's no slides with the.
Oh, yes. For the first one, there is not, but do we need members to go into a room?
They will be.
Okay, so give us a few minutes to reset the table, if you will. We're gonna put those online in an executive room and then staff here will clear out and we'll get started with the first of those two executive items. Scott Holcomb will stay online for both items.
And who's staying with us for the first one?
The first item is going to be just Jackie and I, and then we will have Cody come back, and then Josh is available if needed for the second.
Great.
Rhonda, you're going to stay and take minutes on the real estate piece.
Yes.
And then I will do the minutes on the second item. Thanks, John.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, Rhonda, we need to join that. Yeah.
The Vera room is on mute.
Can you hear us now?
Yes.
It didn't click on the, it didn't click, yeah.
So if you stop sharing. And
Go back to sharing.
Just double click on it.
There we go. Should work.
you can close the bridge out.
Okay,
Good.
okay, we're back in session. Mr. Chair.
We're ready to go. Everybody can hear us?
Yes.
All right. So, welcome back. We are on, item number 17, excuse me. The Chief Executive Officer and General Manager Contract Amendment. I would, welcome a motion to, table this. For, a special session in September. And I'd welcome a motion from the board on that at this time.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion to table for a special session in September has been approved. Which brings us to the, near the end of our meeting here today. A couple of things, just to remind everybody, that our September 18th, meeting is really a joint meeting with board and TAC members. No business is planned. This is to give all of us a chance to have an in-depth tour of the Downtown Connection Center. So, it'll be at our normal scheduled time, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Hope that everyone is able to attend. Should be really exciting. Also, please be advised that our October 16th meeting is a joint meeting with board and TAC. And it will be in person only. Only meeting based in Flagstaff in the training room. We're all gonna be in the training room, yes, because we're not all fitting.
Training room, yes.
And Heather, do you want to add anything so the board understands exactly, because this is not going to be a retreat type?
Right, it's not a normal advance that we would hold in October because it's, I don't know, 20 days before the election. We felt like it was not well timed to do strategic planning and advancing when we didn't know the answer to the funding question. So we are going to use the October 16th meeting to basically give you a state of Mountain Line address. So give you the foundational information of where we are at, funding wise, service wise, annual reports, some of the year-end stuff that we normally give anyway, but really focusing on the health of the agency. And then in March and then May, we will do more of the strategic planning sessions as part of our regular meetings. Once we know the outcome of the November question.
Geronimo, you have your hand up?
Yes, so thank you. So I just wanted to say on the 18th, I personally will not be here for the tour. I'll be traveling for some county work. But then on the 16th of October, that's the RTAC annual conference in Prescott. And so I'm already committed to being there as well. And so just wanted to put that out there and let you know that that's what's happening on the 16th. So I won't be able to make either one of these meetings.
Okay, Supervisor Vasquez, I'm just gonna point out, I am aware of the rural transportation summit in Prescott. Councilmember Sweet is also attending that. One of the reasons we're ending at noon is to give everyone who is committed to that, Kate Morley is another one, time to make that connection. We understand if you have to miss, but I wanted to tell you, we've tried to be cognizant of that competing demand on this particular date.
Okay, no worries. I'll look at my schedule again and see when I'm scheduled to be there and see if I can make this meeting. But thank you, I appreciate that.
Thank you, Vice Chair Vasquez. Recognizing that we're 15 minutes past our normal ending time, I would, and assuming there is no other questions or needs from board members, remind you just to look at your board packet for information around the schedules in September and October as posted on our screen right now. But I would cater a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second. Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.